Tonight you are not rushing anywhere. There is no train waiting, no glowing screen showing you a route, no smooth road stretching endlessly ahead. Instead, there is only a narrow path, a pair of boots, and the slow understanding that the place you are going is very far away. Welcome, quietly, to Sleepy Historian. This is a place where the past moves slowly, where history is not loud or dramatic, but patient, heavy, and often a little uncomfortable. Before we begin, I'm always quietly curious who is walking these long roads with me tonight. If you like, you can tell me in the comments where you are listening from, and whether it's early evening or already very late where you are. If you enjoy calm journeys through the quieter corners of history like this, you're always welcome to subscribe and return another night when the world feels a little too fast. But for now, simply settle in. Let your shoulders soften. Let the rhythm of the story slow your breathing, because tonight we are going to walk a long road together. And the first truth you may notice, the one most people do not expect, is that medieval travel was rarely an adventure. In stories and paintings, travel in the Middle Ages often looks heroic. Knights ride across green hills, messengers gallop along sunlit roads, pilgrims move purposefully toward distant cathedrals. But the quiet truth, the truth most travelers understood very well, is that travel in the medieval world was mostly slow, repetitive endurance. It was the steady sound of boots in dirt. It was mud clinging to leather. It was the long awareness that even after walking all day, you may still be only a small distance from where you began. In many cases, a traveler could walk from sunrise to sunset and still not reach the next town. There were roads, of course. But the word road in the medieval world did not mean what it means today. Often a road was nothing more than a strip of ground that many feet had passed over before you. A narrow line between fields, a track worn into grass, a pair of muddy grooves left by wagon wheels. Sometimes the road vanished entirely after rain. Sometimes snow covered it so completely that you walked only by instinct and the vague memory of where others said the path might be. And yet people traveled constantly. Merchants carried wool, salt, and iron between towns. Monks walked between monasteries. Pilgrims moved slowly toward sacred sites. Farmers pushed carts to distant markets. Messengers crossed entire kingdoms on tired horses. Even ordinary villagers might spend several days walking simply to attend a fair, visit family, or deliver goods to a nearby town. Travel was not rare, but it was rarely comfortable. So tonight, as the fire burns low beside us, we will step quietly into that world. You will begin your journey at the edge of a small village. Behind you are a few timber houses, their roofs dark with soot and weather. A thin column of smoke rises from one chimney. Somewhere nearby a dog barks once, then settles again into silence. The air is cold enough that your breath forms a pale cloud in front of you. You shift the small bundle hanging from your shoulder. It contains almost everything you will carry. A loaf of bread wrapped carefully in cloth, a knife with a wooden handle, perhaps a piece of cheese, a few coins sewn into the inner seam of your tunic. Travelers in the medieval world rarely carried much, not because they did not need things, but because every object added weight, and every pound would travel with you for mile after mile. Your boots are sturdy but stiff. The leather has already begun to darken for morning dew. Your cloak hangs heavy around your shoulders. Wool is warm, but when it becomes wet, it can stay wet for days. You take a moment before beginning, not because the road ahead is frightening, but because it is long. Long in a way that people today rarely experience. If someone in the modern world must travel 200 miles, they may think in terms of hours. 3 hours by car, perhaps a short flight, maybe even less. But in the medieval world, 200 miles is something entirely different. It is not measured in hours. It is measured in days of walking, often 10 days, sometimes more. And each of those days looks surprisingly similar to the last. You walk, you stop, you eat, you walk again. You search for shelter before the light fades. Then you sleep, lightly, often cold, and in the morning you begin again. For travelers in the medieval world, the road was not exciting. It was simply part of life. The body learned its rhythm, step after step, breath after breath, the slow motion of the world passing around you. Fields first, then small forests, then perhaps another village, if the distance between them was not too great. Sometimes hours passed without seeing another person. The road could feel quiet in a way that is difficult for modern travelers to imagine. No engines, no distant hum of traffic, only wind, birds, and the steady sound of your own footsteps. Occasionally you might see another traveler approaching from far down the path. At first only a shape, then a figure, then perhaps a face beneath a hood or hat. Most travelers greeted one another simply. A nod, a short word, sometimes nothing at all. Everyone on the road understood the same thing. The journey was long, and energy was precious. But the road was also something else, something quieter and perhaps a little more difficult. Because travel in the medieval world carried a strange uncertainty. You often knew where you were going, but you rarely knew exactly how far away it was. Maps were rare. Distances were not measured carefully. Instead, people spoke about travel in terms of time. 2 days to the next town, half a day to the river crossing, 3 days if the weather holds, 4 if the roads turn bad. So when you began a journey, you carried not only your small bundle of food and clothing, you also carried uncertainty. Perhaps the road would remain dry. Perhaps rain would fall and turn the path to thick mud. Perhaps the inn you expected to reach by evening would be full, or closed, or simply farther away than anyone remembered. None of these things were unusual. They were simply part of the experience of moving through a world that had not yet been smoothed, measured, and mapped. And so tonight, as the journey begins, you will slowly come to understand something many medieval travelers discovered after only a few miles. The road changes the way you think about distance. It changes the way you feel time passing. A single day can feel long and quiet and strangely repetitive. Yet when the journey is finished, those same days blur together in memory. You remember the cold mornings, the warmth of fires at night, the sound of rain against a cloak, the steady rhythm of walking. And slowly, mile by mile, the landscape itself becomes part of your story. But that story has only just begun. Because right now, you are still standing at the edge of the village. The houses behind you are growing smaller as you walk. The path ahead narrows between 2 fields. The earth beneath your boots is firm for now, though that may not last. The sky above is pale with early morning light. You take another step, then another, and the quiet road stretches forward into the distance. A road that may take days, perhaps weeks, to follow. But there is no hurry. In the medieval world there rarely was. So take a slow breath. Let the rhythm of the journey settle in. Because the first miles of any medieval journey are always the same. You simply begin walking. The first hour of walking feels almost easy. Your legs are still warm from movement. Your breathing is steady. The small village behind you has not yet disappeared completely from sight. If you were to turn around now, you could still see the line of rooftops, low and dark against the pale sky. A thin ribbon of smoke rises from one chimney. Somewhere in that cluster of houses, morning has begun the way it always does. Someone is stirring porridge over a fire. Someone else is carrying water from a well. Animals shift slowly in their pens. But with each step you take, that familiar place becomes smaller. Soon it will vanish behind a low hill, and once it does, the road will belong only to you. You adjust the strap of the small bundle hanging over your shoulder. At first it did not feel very heavy, but even after the first mile or two, you begin to notice the pressure where the strap rests against your collarbone. This is something medieval travelers understood very well. The body notices weight slowly, but it notices it constantly. Your bundle is not large. In fact, by modern standards, it might look surprisingly small. But everything inside it matters, because each object must justify the effort required to carry it across many miles. You reach back and shift the bundle slightly, redistributing the weight. Inside the cloth wrapping there is bread, a round loaf slightly hard already from yesterday's baking. Bread travels well, it does not spoil quickly, and it can be eaten slowly throughout the day. Beside the bread is a small piece of cheese, wrapped carefully in another layer of cloth. Cheese is valuable for travelers. It keeps longer than many foods, and it provides strength after hours of walking. You also carry a knife. Nearly every traveler in the medieval world owned one. Not a weapon in the dramatic sense, but a practical tool. It cuts bread, it slices cheese, it trims leather straps or small branches when needed. The knife rests inside a simple sheath attached to your belt. The wooden handle is worn smooth from years of use. You may also have a small leather water skin tied to the bundle. Water is not always difficult to find. Streams and wells appear often enough along traveled routes, but when the road stretches through open land, having a small supply with you can make the difference between comfort and quiet thirst. Coins are another matter. If you carry them at all, they are hidden carefully. Many travelers sew coins into the lining of their clothing, a few small pieces of silver or copper stitched into the inner seam of a tunic or cloak. Not because thieves lurk behind every tree, but because losing those coins could mean the difference between sleeping in a warm inn or spending the night in the cold outside a village gate. As the path bends gently between two open fields, you become aware of another small sensation: your boots. They felt comfortable when you first began walking, but now you notice the stiffness of the leather where it bends across the top of your foot. Boots in the medieval world are sturdy, but they are not soft. Leather thick enough to survive months of travel must also resist your feet at first. With every step, the material creaks slightly. It will soften over time. But for now it reminds you that walking is not effortless. The road stretches ahead in a narrow ribbon of dirt. At this early hour the ground is still firm. The night's cool air has kept the soil dry enough for easy footing. But later in the day, if the sun warms the earth, or if rain begins to fall, that same ground could become sticky and difficult. You walk at a steady pace. Not too fast, not too slow. Experienced travelers rarely hurry. Speed may feel satisfying for the first hour, but after several hours the body begins to protest. Breathing grows heavier, muscles tighten, and the distance you must still travel becomes harder to endure. So instead, you settle into a rhythm. Step, step, step. Your breathing matches the motion. Inhale, exhale. A calm and steady pattern. This is the quiet rhythm of medieval travel. Not dramatic, not exciting, simply consistent. The fields on either side of the road are quiet. In one field, rows of winter crops sit low and pale beneath the morning light. In another, the earth has been turned recently, dark soil exposed to the air. A crow lands briefly near the edge of the road, then lifts away again with a soft beating of wings. Time passes slowly here. After perhaps an hour of walking, you pause beside a small wooden fence, not because you are exhausted, but because stopping occasionally helps preserve energy for the many miles ahead. You shift the bundle from one shoulder to the other. The brief relief feels surprisingly pleasant. Your shoulders relax, your arms loosen. Moments like this are small, but they matter. Medieval travelers quickly learn that comfort is not something large or dramatic. It is a series of small adjustments: a loosened strap, a sip of water, a moment standing still beside the road. After a minute or two, you begin walking again. The road now dips gently downward toward a narrow stream. The water moves quietly between smooth stones. You kneel briefly at the bank and refill the small leather skin. The water is cold and clear enough. When you stand again, you notice that the village you left behind has completely disappeared. The road curves slightly through a line of low trees. Beyond them, the land opens into another stretch of fields. This is the moment when many travelers feel the journey truly begin, not when they first step onto the road, but when the familiar world behind them can no longer be seen. You are alone now, in the quiet sense that the road belongs only to you. Other travelers may pass later. Villages will appear eventually, but for this hour, and perhaps the next, there is only the sound of your footsteps. Step, step, step. Your bundle shifts gently with the motion. The weight is not overwhelming, but it is always there. A reminder that every mile requires effort, and that the road ahead, however long it may be, will be carried not just by your feet, but by the quiet weight of everything you bring with you. After a few miles of walking, something slowly becomes clear. The road you are following is not really a road at all. At first glance, it appears obvious enough. A narrow strip of ground where the grass no longer grows as thickly. The soil is pressed down from years of footsteps and wagon wheels, but the longer you walk, the more you begin to notice how uncertain it really is. In some places the path widens suddenly into several smaller tracks. One veers, slightly left toward a line of trees. Another bends right, disappearing behind a low rise in the land. A third continues forward, though its edges are faint and uneven. There are no signs, no markers, no helpful posts pointing toward distant towns. In the medieval world, roads are rarely planned in the way modern roads are. They emerge slowly, shaped by habit. A farmer takes a shortcut across a field. A merchant leads a mule between two villages. A shepherd follows the same path season after season. Over many years, these repeated movements press the earth into recognizable tracks. But they remain fragile. Rain can erase them. Snow can hide them. New paths can appear simply because enough people decide to walk a slightly different way. So as you walk, you learn to pay attention to small details. The deeper ruts often suggest wagon traffic. Those may lead toward larger towns or markets, but wagons also avoid steep hills and muddy low ground. If the land becomes rough, the path might shift unexpectedly. You slow slightly as the road dips into a shallow hollow. Here the soil is darker and softer. The memory of recent rain lingers in the ground. Your boots sink slightly with each step. Not deeply enough to stop you, but enough to remind you that the condition of the road can change without warning. Medieval travelers quickly develop a kind of quiet awareness. You begin noticing where the earth is firm, where water collects, where grasses are flattened from recent passage. Even the angle of sunlight can help. A faint track across dry land sometimes becomes visible only when the light strikes the ground from a certain direction. You follow what appears to be the main path, but there is always a small doubt in the back of your mind. Is this truly the correct way? Or simply one of several ways people have passed through this land? The countryside around you remains calm and open. A wide field stretches to your right, bordered by a low stone wall. Beyond the wall stands a small cluster of trees. Their branches are bare now, thin lines against the pale sky. To your left, the land slopes gently upward. Sheep graze there, their quiet movements barely noticeable from the road. The shepherd watching them leans on a wooden staff. He glances in your direction briefly. Travelers are not unusual sights, but neither are they constant. You nod politely as you pass. The shepherd returns the gesture, slow and unhurried. No words are exchanged. In the medieval world, such small acknowledgments are often enough. You continue walking. The road becomes narrower again. In some places the grass creeps inward from both sides, softening the edges of the path. If not for the faint impressions left by countless feet, you might not recognize it as a road at all. This is one of the quiet challenges of medieval travel. Not danger, not speed, but uncertainty. Most travelers rely on memory and description rather than maps. Before beginning a journey, someone might tell you, follow the road past the stone bridge. Keep the river to your right. When you see the old oak tree, turn toward the hills. These directions are usually helpful, but they also leave room for interpretation. What if there are two bridges? What if several large oak trees stand near the road? What if the river bends and disappears for several miles? As the day progresses, the sun climbs higher. The light warms the air slightly, though the breeze remains cool. Your cloak shifts gently with each step, and the quiet rhythm of walking continues, step, step, step. After another hour or so, the road forks again. This time the difference between the paths is more noticeable. One track slopes downward toward a small valley, where a narrow stream glitters faintly. The other climbs gradually toward higher ground. You pause for a moment, not out of worry, but out of habit. Travelers often stop at such points to think. Which direction seems more worn? Which path appears more traveled? You examine the ground carefully. The lower path shows deeper wagon ruts. Wagons prefer gentle slopes and access to water. The higher path, though still visible, appears used mostly by people on foot, perhaps shepherds, perhaps villagers moving between nearby farms. You choose the lower road. Your boots follow the wagon ruts down the hill. The stream grows louder as you approach, not a roaring sound, just the quiet murmur of water moving over stones. A small wooden bridge crosses the narrow channel. Its boards are worn smooth by years of passage. You step carefully across. The wood creaks softly beneath your weight. On the far side the road continues, though again it becomes less certain. The ruts fade slightly. Grass presses closer. The path bends around a cluster of bushes and disappears briefly from view. But you keep walking, because this too is part of the medieval traveler's experience. You rarely know the road perfectly. Instead, you trust the slow logic of movement. Paths usually lead somewhere. People before you have walked here for reasons. Villages are rarely completely isolated. Roads connect them, even if those connections are faint, and so the journey continues, quietly, patiently, without hurry. The road may not be clear, but the direction forward remains simple. You keep walking. By the middle of the day, something subtle begins to change. The excitement of beginning the journey has faded. The road is no longer new, and your body has settled into the quiet reality of what traveling in the medieval world truly means. It means walking, not for a short time, not for a pleasant morning stroll, but for hour after hour, with the steady patience that the road demands. The sun now sits higher in the sky. Its light is pale and steady, spreading across the fields and distant hills without urgency. You have been walking long enough that the rhythm of your steps has become almost automatic. Step, step, step. Your boots press gently into the dirt road. Sometimes the ground is firm. Sometimes it softens beneath your weight. Each change in the soil travels upward through your legs in a quiet message from the earth. Your shoulders notice the bundle again. It has not grown heavier, of course, but time makes weight feel different. A strap that seemed comfortable earlier now presses more firmly against the same place on your shoulder. You shift it slightly. The relief is small, but welcome. This is something travelers quickly learn. Comfort does not arrive all at once. It appears in small adjustments, a change of posture, a slower pace, a brief pause beside the road. Ahead of you, the land begins to change. The wide open fields gradually give way to scattered trees. Their branches reach upward in thin patterns against the sky. The road narrows slightly as it enters the edge of a woodland. Here the ground is softer. Layers of fallen leaves cover the earth. Your footsteps become quieter. Even the air feels different beneath the trees. Cooler, still. The wind that moved easily across the open fields cannot reach here as easily. Instead, there is only the gentle creaking of branches and the distant sound of birds shifting somewhere in the canopy above. You continue walking. The forest is not deep. Most medieval roads pass through woodlands rather than around them. Forests are common across much of the landscape, and travelers accept them as simply another part of the journey. Yet walking beneath trees brings a different awareness. The sunlight no longer guides the day as clearly. The sky appears only in narrow pieces between branches. Time feels slightly harder to measure. But experienced travelers do not need clocks. They watch the light itself. As long as the sun continues to climb, there are still many hours of walking ahead. But once it begins to sink lower, preparations for evening must begin, because night travel is something most people avoid. In the medieval world, darkness is complete. There are no street lamps, no distant towns glowing on the horizon. When the sun disappears, The world becomes quiet and shadowed. Even a familiar road can become difficult to follow. So travelers learn to pay attention to the slow turning of the day. For now, though, the afternoon still stretches comfortably ahead. You pass through the last line of trees and emerge once more into open land. The road continues between low hills now. A few farmhouses stand in the distance. Their thatched roofs appear as small shapes against the green and brown fields. Smoke drifts lazily upward from one of them. The sight brings a quiet thought. Somewhere ahead there will be a place to stop. Perhaps a village. Perhaps a small roadside inn. Perhaps a barn where a traveler might rest for the night. But for the moment the road continues. And so do you. Walking in the medieval world follows a gentle pattern. A traveler walks for an hour or two, then rests briefly, then walks again. These pauses are not signs of weakness. They are practical decisions. The body works best when effort is steady rather than sudden. You stop now beside a low stone wall. The stones are rough and uneven, carefully stacked long ago by patient hands. You sit for a moment, removing the bundle from your shoulder. Your arms feel lighter immediately. Your legs remain warm from walking. You unwrap the cloth around the bread. The loaf has grown firmer during the day, but it is still good enough to eat. You break off a small piece, then another. Perhaps you slice a thin piece of cheese with your knife. The food is simple. But after several hours of walking, it feels satisfying. Nearby, the road remains quiet. No other travelers pass during this short rest. This is not unusual. Medieval roads can feel strangely empty at times. People travel regularly, but they are spread across many paths and distances. Sometimes you may walk half a day without seeing anyone, then suddenly encounter several travelers within the same hour. The road has its own quiet patterns. You finish your small meal and wrap the remaining bread again. The bundle returns to your shoulder. The strap presses against the familiar place once more, but now your body feels ready to move again. The afternoon light has begun to soften slightly, not fading yet, but shifting toward the long, calm glow that arrives later in the day. You walk steadily, step, step, step. The land rises gently ahead. Climbing hills is always slower. Your breathing grows deeper as the slope increases, but the effort is manageable. At the top of the hill, you pause again, not because you must, but because the view invites it. From here, the road stretches far across the countryside. You can see the winding line of the path you followed earlier. It curves between fields, disappears behind a grove of trees, then emerges again in the distance. Farther ahead, something else catches your attention. A small cluster of buildings, perhaps half a mile away. Their roofs are low and dark. A thin church tower rises among them. The sight brings a quiet feeling of relief. You may reach that village before sunset, and if you do, there will likely be water, perhaps a meal, possibly even a bed near a warm fire. But even if there is not, the journey will continue tomorrow. That is another quiet truth of medieval travel. No single day finishes the road. You simply walk until the light fades. Then you rest, and in the morning you walk again. By the time another day of travel begins, you already understand something important. The road is never exactly the same twice. Even if it is the same road, the same path, the same villages waiting somewhere ahead, weather changes everything. You feel it the moment you wake. The air is cooler this morning, not cold enough to bite your fingers, but heavy in a way that makes the sky feel lower than yesterday. Gray clouds stretch slowly across the horizon. They move without urgency, drifting like slow ships above the fields. You stand outside the place where you rested during the night. Perhaps it was a small village inn, perhaps only a corner of a barn offered by a farmer who saw that you were a traveler. In the medieval world, hospitality exists in quiet forms. Travelers depend on the kindness of strangers more often than they depend on planned shelter. You adjust the bundle on your shoulder again. Your cloak sits a little tighter today, not because you are colder, but because rain may come. And once rain arrives on the road, everything changes. At first the morning journey feels ordinary. The road stretches ahead between low hedges and scattered fields. Your boots step against the firm dirt surface just as they did yesterday. Step, step, step. The rhythm of walking returns quickly. Your body remembers the motion almost immediately. Your shoulders loosen. Your breathing settles into the quiet pattern that travelers know well. For a time the clouds simply drift. No rain yet, only the faint smell of moisture in the air. It is a scent that people of the medieval world recognize instantly. Rain is rarely a surprise. Nature gives small warnings first. Birds grow quieter. Wind softens. The sky thickens. You continue walking. A cart track appears in the road ahead. 2 deep grooves where wagon wheels have passed many times before. When the road is dry, these grooves are only shallow lines in the dirt. But when rain falls, they become something else, something more difficult. For now, though, the ground remains firm. You pass a farmer guiding a pair of oxen across a nearby field. He raises one hand in a small greeting. Travelers are a normal sight. Pilgrims, merchants, messengers, people moving between towns in search of work or family. The road belongs to everyone and to no one. The sky grows darker, not dramatically, just gradually enough that you notice it without needing to think about it. Then the first drop falls. You feel it on the back of your hand. Cold, small, almost gentle. Another follows, then another. Rain in the medieval countryside rarely begins with a sudden storm. It arrives quietly. You pull the edge of your cloak a little higher around your shoulders. The wool will keep you warm even when damp, but it cannot keep you completely dry. The road darkens as the rain touches it. Dust disappears. The surface becomes smooth and darker in color. Your boots begin to leave deeper prints behind you. At first, walking remains easy, but slowly the road begins to soften. This is the moment travelers learn to watch for. The moment when firm ground becomes mud. The change happens gradually. One step sinks a little deeper than the last. The next step slides slightly before settling. Soon the cart grooves begin to fill with water. Thin brown puddles stretch along the length of the road. Your boots avoid them at first, stepping along the higher center of the path, but the center grows soft as well. The soil beneath your feet begins to cling. Each step now requires a little more effort. You feel the weight of the mud pulling gently at your boots. Step, lift, step, lift. The rhythm of walking changes, slower now, more careful. Travelers in the medieval world know this reality well. Rain does not simply make the road uncomfortable. It can transform a day's journey completely. A distance that might take 6 hours on dry ground may take 10 hours through mud. Wagons struggle even more, sometimes becoming stuck entirely. For someone traveling on foot, progress continues, but patience becomes necessary. The rain falls steadily now, not heavy, just constant, the kind of rain that seems determined to last. Water gathers along the edges of the road. Small streams begin to run through the grass beside the path. Your cloak grows heavier as it absorbs moisture. The wool darkens. Your shoulders feel the difference. Still, you continue, because this is what travelers do. Stopping too often in the rain brings its own problems. Clothing cools. The body stiffens. Better to keep moving slowly than to remain still. Ahead, another traveler appears on the road. A man leading a small donkey. Bundles hang across the animal's back. He walks with the same careful steps you now use. Mud makes equals of everyone. Merchant, pilgrim, messenger. All move at the pace the road allows. You pass each other with a quiet nod. Neither of you stops to speak. Rain encourages silence. Words feel unnecessary when the weather itself fills the world with sound. Drops fall against the road, against your cloak, against the leaves of nearby trees. The countryside grows softer in color as mist begins to gather above the wet fields. Even distance seems closer now. Shapes blur slightly beyond the next rise in the road. You continue walking. Your legs work steadily. The muscles in your calves tighten and release with each careful step. Mud pulls. You lift. Mud releases. Step again. This is the quiet endurance of medieval travel. Not heroic, not dramatic, simply persistent. Time passes slowly on a road like this. An hour may feel longer than 2 hours on dry ground, but the road continues, and so do you. Somewhere ahead, perhaps several miles away, there will be another village, another roof, another fire, but that place belongs to the future. For now there is only the present moment, the steady rain, the soft road, and the endless distance stretching quietly ahead. After many miles of walking, you begin to understand something that travelers in the medieval world accept quietly. The road rarely belongs to one person alone, even when it feels empty, even when the countryside stretches in silence for long distances. Sooner or later, another traveler appears, not suddenly, usually as a distant shape, a figure moving slowly along the same path. At first, the person is only a small form on the horizon, perhaps just a darker shape against the pale fields. But step by step, mile by mile, the distance closes. You continue walking through the soft road left behind by the morning rain. The mud has not disappeared. It rarely does so quickly. But the falling water has slowed. Now only occasional drops fall from the low clouds above. The countryside feels quiet again. Your cloak remains damp, though it has begun to grow lighter as the air moves gently across the land. The road curves slightly around a patch of low trees, and as you follow it, you notice the traveler ahead more clearly. A man, walking at a steady pace, not fast, not slow. The same pace most people naturally find after several hours on the road. You do not rush to catch him. Medieval travelers rarely hurry unless they must. Distance closes naturally over time. Step, step, step. Your boots sink slightly into the softened earth. The mud no longer surprises you. Your legs have already learned how to lift each step carefully. Ahead, the man glances over his shoulder once. He sees you approaching, but he does not stop. This is also normal. On the road, strangers often walk near one another for a time before speaking. It is a quiet evaluation, a moment where each traveler observes the other. Clothing, pace, posture, all small clues that suggest who the other person might be. By the time you draw closer, you notice more details. His cloak is worn but sturdy. A walking stick rests in his hand. Across his back hangs a leather satchel, not large enough for trade goods, more like the simple belongings of someone traveling a long distance on foot, perhaps a pilgrim. Pilgrims are common on medieval roads, people walking to holy sites far from home. Some travel for faith, others travel because a priest or church authority has assigned the journey as penance. Either way, they move slowly, often covering the same roads used by merchants and farmers. Eventually, the distance between you becomes small enough that silence begins to feel noticeable. The man glances back again. This time he slows slightly, not a full stop, just enough that your steps bring you alongside him. For a moment, both of you continue walking without speaking, boots pressing into mud, cloaks brushing softly against damp air. Then he offers a simple greeting, not elaborate, just a few quiet words acknowledging your presence. On the road, conversation begins slowly. Travelers are cautious, but they are also curious. It does not take long before the two of you begin walking at the same pace. This happens easily. Humans naturally match rhythm when traveling together. Your steps fall into the same quiet pattern. You learn small things about each other in the gentle way road companions always do. Where you started your journey, which town lies behind you, which direction you are heading. These conversations rarely feel urgent. They unfold slowly between long stretches of silence, because walking itself occupies most of your attention. The road continues to stretch ahead to the countryside. Fields widen again after the trees. A narrow stream crosses beneath the road over a simple wooden bridge. The two of you step across carefully. The boards creak slightly beneath your weight. Below, water moves steadily between moss-covered stones. You pause briefly here, not because you must, but because travelers often take advantage of natural stopping points. Bridges, wells, roadside shrines, places where movement naturally slows. Your companion kneels near the stream. He dips a small cup into the flowing water. You do the same. The water tastes cool and fresh, better than the rainwater that has soaked the road all morning. When you rise again, both of you take a moment to stretch. Walking long distances encourages small pauses like this. A roll of the shoulders, a slow breath, a shift of the bundle against your back. Soon the road calls you forward again. The two of you continue walking together. Now the silence feels comfortable rather than uncertain. This is another quiet truth of medieval travel. Companionship appears unexpectedly, sometimes lasting only an hour, sometimes several days. Two travelers may walk together simply because their destinations lie in the same direction, or because the road feels easier when footsteps echo beside your own. Conversation drifts gently. Stories of weather, of towns passed along the way, of roads that grow dangerous in winter or vanish beneath spring floods. None of it feels dramatic, but it fills the long hours of walking. At times both of you fall silent again, listening instead to the sounds of the countryside, wind moving through tall grass, distant animals somewhere in the fields, the steady rhythm of two sets of boots pressing into the soft earth. You notice that walking beside someone changes the feeling of the road. Distance passes more quietly, time seems slightly shorter. Even the mud feels less demanding, because attention moves outward rather than inward. Eventually, though, roads divide. They always do. By the time the afternoon light begins its slow descent toward evening, a crossroads appears ahead. A wooden signpost stands at the edge of the path. Its lettering is rough but readable. One road continues west, the other curves south. Your companion studies the sign. Then he nods once. His journey continues along the southern road. You remain on the western path. There is no long farewell, just a quiet exchange of good wishes, a simple hope that the road ahead remains passable, and that shelter appears before nightfall. Then the two of you part. His footsteps grow softer as he follows the other road. Soon the fields hide him from view, and once again you walk alone. But the road does not feel quite as empty now, because the memory of shared footsteps lingers for a while, a quiet reminder that in the medieval world every traveler is only temporarily alone. As the afternoon slowly begins to fade, another quiet concern settles into your mind. Not the distance behind you, not even the miles still waiting ahead, but something much simpler. Where will you sleep tonight? This question becomes more important with every step as the light gradually softens. In the medieval world, night arrives without warning lamps or glowing windows to guide the way. When darkness comes, it is complete. The countryside becomes a place of shadow and uncertain ground. Even familiar paths disappear beneath the weight of night. So travelers begin thinking about shelter long before the sun actually sets. You notice it in the way your attention shifts. Earlier in the day, your eyes followed the road itself. Now they wander outward, scanning the distance, searching for signs of human life. A farmhouse, a cluster of roofs, the narrow outline of a church tower rising above fields. Any of these might offer a place to rest. The road continues between wide pastures now. Grass bends gently beneath the afternoon wind. Cattle move slowly across the fields, their shapes dark against the pale earth. Beyond them, low hills stretch toward the horizon. Somewhere beyond those hills there will be a village. There almost always is. Medieval roads rarely travel long distances without eventually connecting to a settlement. But knowing that does not make the search feel less urgent. Because the sun continues its slow movement toward evening, you feel it in the changing light. Shadows grow longer. Colors soften. The world becomes quieter. Your legs are tired now. Not painfully so. Just the deep, steady fatigue that follows a full day of walking. Your boots feel heavier than they did in the morning. Your shoulders ache slightly beneath the weight of your bundle. But the road continues, and you continue with it. After another mile or two, you notice something encouraging. Smoke, thin and pale against the sky, rising slowly in the distance. Smoke almost always means fire, and fire almost always means people. You adjust your direction slightly as the road curves. Soon the shapes beneath the smoke begin to appear. First, the roof of a single house, then another, then several clustered together. A village, not large, perhaps only a dozen buildings gathered around a narrow central path. But to a traveler nearing the end of the day, it feels significant. As you approach, sounds begin to reach you. Dogs barking somewhere behind a fence, voices drifting through the open air, the faint clatter of tools being set aside as farmers finish their work. The village itself is simple. Thatched roofs, walls of timber or stone, a small well at the center, and beside it, a modest church. The church tower is not tall, but it stands higher than the surrounding houses, a quiet marker that this place belongs to a larger world of roads and travelers. You step slowly into the village path. Villagers glance up briefly as you pass. Travelers are not unusual, but they are always noticed. Some people nod politely, others simply return to their work. In many villages, travelers have a few options for the night. The most obvious is the inn, but not every village has one. Small settlements often rely on something else: hospitality. Sometimes a farmer will offer a place in the barn, a corner of dry straw where a traveler may sleep beside the animals. It is not luxurious, but it is warm, and warmth matters more than comfort after a long day on the road. Another possibility is the church itself. Some churches allow pilgrims to rest within their walls. Stone floors can feel cold, but they are dry, and beneath the quiet ceiling of the church, travelers often find peace enough to sleep. In larger villages, an innkeeper might welcome you inside. These roadside inns are simple places: a common room filled with rough wooden tables, a fire burning steadily in the hearth, perhaps several travelers already sitting nearby, boots drying beside the flames, cloaks draped over chairs. If you are fortunate, you might even find a place to lie down. Often this means sharing space with others. Beds in medieval inns are not private. Several travelers may sleep side by side beneath thick blankets. It is not unusual. Privacy is rare on the road. Tonight, you are fortunate enough to find such a place. The innkeeper greets you with the practiced patience of someone accustomed to travelers. You pay a small coin, not much, just enough to justify the warmth of the fire, and a bowl of simple food. The room smells faintly of wood smoke and damp wool. Several other travelers sit quietly nearby. A merchant with a leather satchel, two laborers resting their tired feet. No one speaks loudly. Even conversation feels slower after a long day of travel. You sit near the fire. The warmth spreads slowly through your cloak. Your boots dry gradually beside the hearth. Someone places a wooden bowl in front of you. Inside is thick stew, barley, vegetables, perhaps a small piece of meat if the village is prosperous. You eat slowly. Food after a day of walking tastes different, more satisfying, more grounding. Outside, evening deepens. The sky turns darker behind the small windows. One by one, the travelers grow quiet. Some lean back in their chairs. Others stretch out near the walls. Eventually, the innkeeper gestures toward the sleeping area, a loft above the common room. You climb the wooden ladder slowly. Your legs feel the day's journey with every step. Upstairs, straw mattresses lie side by side across the floor. Rough blankets rest on top. Nothing luxurious, but after miles of walking, it feels more than enough. You lower yourself onto the straw. The bundle rests beside you. Your boots remain near the ladder to dry. Below, the fire continues to crackle softly. Voices fade. The road is finished for today. Tomorrow, it will begin again. But tonight the journey pauses, and somewhere between the warmth of the fire and the steady fatigue in your legs, sleep slowly arrives. Morning arrives slowly in the small loft above the inn. At first you notice it not through light but through sound. Someone below is already awake. The quiet crackle of the hearth fire returns as the innkeeper stirs the embers. Wood shifts. A faint clatter of bowls follows. Outside, a rooster calls somewhere in the village. Then another answers. The world beyond the walls begins its quiet return to movement. You remain still for a moment. Your body notices the stiffness left behind by yesterday's journey. Not pain exactly, just a gentle heaviness in your legs and shoulders. This is the familiar weight of travel, the kind that fades slowly once you begin moving again. Around you, the other travelers begin to wake as well. Someone sits up and stretches, another gathers their cloak. No one speaks loudly. Morning in a roadside inn often feels calm, almost careful, as though everyone understands that the road will demand its share of energy soon enough. You rise slowly from the straw mattress. Your boots are dry now. The leather still holds the faint memory of yesterday's mud, but they are ready for another day. Downstairs, the fire glows warmly. A few early travelers already sit at the long wooden table. Bread rests in simple baskets, perhaps a little cheese, sometimes thin porridge if the innkeeper is generous. You eat quietly. Food before a day of walking does not need to be elaborate, just enough to carry you through the early hours of the journey. Outside, the sky is pale with early light. Mist clings to the edges of the fields. The village looks smaller in the morning than it did at dusk. A few farmers already move across the pastures. A woman draws water from the well. The day begins its slow unfolding. You step back onto the road. Your cloak settles around your shoulders. The bundle returns to its familiar place against your back. And once again, the quiet rhythm of travel begins. Step, step, step. But today you notice something different. The road ahead does not follow a straight line. Instead, it bends gently through the countryside, curving around hills, winding between farms, disappearing briefly into a small stand of trees before emerging again. This is one of the quiet surprises of medieval travel. Roads rarely behave the way modern travelers expect. Today, people imagine roads as deliberate creations, engineered paths designed to connect two places as directly as possible. But medieval roads grew differently. They were not designed all at once. They evolved slowly, shaped by centuries of footsteps, wagon wheels, and practical decisions. Sometimes a road curves simply because a hill stands in the way. Climbing straight over the hill would exhaust travelers and animals. So the path bends around it instead. Sometimes a road avoids marshy ground where wagons would sink. Sometimes it shifts to pass near a reliable stream where water is easy to reach. In other places, the road follows property boundaries between farms, because no farmer wishes a busy path cutting directly through their fields. All of these small decisions accumulate over generations, and the result is something that feels almost organic, a road that moves across the landscape the way a river does, not straight, but persistent. As you walk, you begin to notice these patterns. The road rises slightly along the side of a low hill, rather than climbing directly upward. It dips into a shallow valley where the ground remains firmer. Ahead, it splits briefly around a large oak tree that has stood beside the path for longer than anyone remembers. Travelers pass on either side, then rejoin the same track. You walk for nearly an hour before reaching another interesting feature of medieval geography, a fork in the road. Here the path divides into two clear directions, both well-traveled, both marked by deep wagon grooves and many footprints. This moment always requires thought, because signs are not always reliable. Some crossroads have wooden posts carved with place names. Others rely on memory, or advice given by travelers along the way. You pause for a moment, looking down one road, then the other. Each disappears gently into the distance. The countryside offers few clues, but eventually a farmer working in a nearby field notices your hesitation. You raise a hand in greeting. He approaches slowly, wiping soil from his hands. When you ask about the road, he nods and points. One path leads toward the river crossing several miles away. The other bends south toward a market town. His explanation is brief, but it is enough. You thank him, then continue along the road that leads toward the river. This exchange is another quiet part of medieval travel. People rely on one another for direction far more often than they rely on signs. Knowledge of the land lives in the memories of those who work it every day. Soon the road begins to descend. The land grows slightly greener here. Moisture gathers more easily in the valley below. You hear the river before you see it, a steady sound of water moving across stone. When the road finally reaches the bank, a narrow wooden bridge waits there. Bridges like this are important landmarks. They gather travelers from many directions, merchants, farmers bringing goods to town, pilgrims walking long religious routes. For a short time the road may even feel busy. You cross slowly with the others, boots thumping gently against the wooden boards, water flowing steadily beneath. On the far side the road continues once more into open countryside, and once again the geography of the medieval world reveals itself, not as straight lines on a map, but as living paths shaped by land, water, memory, and time. You follow that path quietly, because like every traveler before you, your journey is guided by the road itself. The road stretches ahead after the river crossing, soft with the remnants of morning mist. At first glance it seems calm. Fields roll gently on either side, dotted with distant farmhouses. The sun has climbed higher, though its light is pale, filtered through lingering clouds. The world feels ordinary. But the medieval traveler knows better. Danger rarely arrives with fanfare. It does not strike suddenly, like in stories or song. Instead, it is quiet, almost imperceptible. A patch of ground may be softer than it appears, hiding a bog or deep mud beneath a deceptively firm surface. One step too far to the side, and your boots sink, legs trembling slightly as you recover. A fallen branch, partially hidden in long grass, may trip the inattentive foot. The consequences are small, but after hours on the road, each minor disruption grows noticeable. Your body begins to register these subtleties almost automatically. Muscles tense slightly when approaching uneven ground. Eyes flicker to small changes in texture and color. You develop a kind of low awareness that occupies the mind without demanding thought. Further along, the road narrows. Low hedges rise on either side, their branches tangled and thorny. You step carefully, feeling each branch brush against your cloak. The thorns scratch lightly. No injury, only reminder. Traveling through such corridors demands focus, but not stress. The quiet pressure keeps you alert without urgency. A small animal darts across the path. A rabbit. It disappears instantly into the hedgerow. You notice only a brief flicker of movement. In the medieval countryside, animals are part of the road's subtle rhythm. Cattle may wander near fences. Horses sometimes graze beside fields. Even birds provide information. Their calls indicate wind direction, approaching weather, or human presence. Each step on this winding road carries this awareness. It is not danger that threatens with immediate harm. It is the slow accumulation of fatigue, small missteps, weather, and imperfect paths. A traveler who misjudges a soft bank of soil may lose an hour or more struggling to recover. A sudden downpour may soak clothing. Slow movement chill the body. A minor injury may become serious simply because help is hours away. This is the quiet hazard of medieval roads. You continue along the path. A faint smell reaches you. Smoke, thin and distant. Perhaps another village. Perhaps a lone farmhouse. The world offers occasional signs of safety. Yet there is always the unspoken truth. The road itself is indifferent. It does not guide. It does not protect. It simply exists. Your footsteps create a rhythm that matches the slow pulse of the countryside. Step, step, step. Your boots press into soft dirt. Your cloak shifts gently with each movement. The road winds around a small rise. From the top you see fields extending to the horizon. A low line of hills marks the distance. Between you and them, the path curves, dips, and rises again. You notice slight irregularities, soft patches, small stones, puddles. Each demands attention without urgency. As the day passes, the rhythm of walking becomes almost meditative. You move with the road, and the road moves with you. It contains no immediate threats, yet it requires constant awareness, because in the medieval world the smallest details often shape the largest outcomes. Not the heroic dangers of stories, but the quiet pressures that define every traveler's day. The mud, the weight, the weather, the slow erosion of stamina. And so you walk, hour after hour, step, step, step. Each step brings you closer to evening, closer to shelter, closer to the end of today's journey. The dangers are hidden, but they are never absent. They live in the road itself, and in the traveler's awareness of it. This is the subtle endurance required on the medieval path. Not courage, not speed, but patience, attention, quiet persistence. The road leads you onward, winding gently through the countryside until it begins to shift noticeably. The terrain becomes softer, greener. Where the last hill fell away, a river appears. Its presence is subtle at first, a quiet sound of flowing water beneath trees, the faint scent of damp earth. Then the current becomes clear, moving steadily over stones, carving its path across the land. Rivers in the medieval world are more than natural features. They are both guides and obstacles. A traveler learns quickly that water can determine the day's journey. The road may end abruptly at a steep bank, the ford too deep to cross safely. Or a simple wooden bridge may offer passage, built decades ago by villagers or abbey hands. Today you find a bridge, not tall, not wide, but solid enough. The planks have been worn smooth by countless boots, cartwheels, and hoofs. You approach slowly, noting each board beneath your feet. The bridge creaks slightly as you step, but holds. The river runs beneath, clear enough to see the moss-covered stones. You pause at the midpoint. The current moves steadily, carrying fallen leaves and small branches along its path. The motion is calm, never violent, but the river itself has a quiet authority. It reminds you that the landscape operates on its own schedule, not yours. Step by step you cross. Your boots press against the smooth boards. Your bundle shifts slightly, and you adjust it against your shoulder. When you reach the far side, the world seems subtly altered. The fields stretch out differently. The road curves slightly. Perhaps a small village appears in the distance. Perhaps only open land. Each crossing changes the rhythm of the journey. The river is a pause, a moment to reset, a reminder that the road has limits and boundaries. Beyond the crossing, the path continues between hedgerows and pastures. Sometimes the ground is firm, sometimes soft. The pattern of movement becomes meditative. Step, step, step. You notice small details as you walk. A bird flitting between trees. A fox darting across a distant field. The gentle ripple of water in a ditch. These small signs fill the hours of walking, providing subtle cues about time, place, and the world around you. Occasionally, another traveler appears. Perhaps a merchant with a donkey laden with goods. Perhaps a pilgrim resting briefly by the roadside. You nod politely. Sometimes a word is exchanged. Mostly, movement and silence carry the interaction. Time passes slowly. The miles stretch outward. Distance becomes something measured by rhythm rather than maps. By the steady repetition of steps, the bridge, the river, the fields all become markers in a subtle geography that guides the traveler. Even landmarks, trees, fences, cottages acquire, meaning not as static objects, but as companions to your progress. By the end of the afternoon, the path begins to rise slightly. Small hills appear in the distance. You notice shadows lengthening across the fields. The light is gentle, fading slowly toward evening. Somewhere beyond the next rise there will be shelter, a farmhouse, a village, a small inn, or perhaps only a patch of dry ground to rest before the night fully arrives. The rhythm of travel remains unbroken. Step, step, step. The road continues patiently, indifferent to your pace. And you continue along it, learning once more that in the medieval world, distance is always a slow companion, crossed only through attention, endurance, and quiet persistence. By the time the sun lowers behind distant hills, the world softens. Colors fade, shadows lengthen, and the next opportunity for rest will present itself. But until then, the road remains, and you walk, step, 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 step. The morning after the river crossing, your body speaks in ways you almost do not notice at first. Legs ache gently, not sharply, but the subtle fatigue lingers with each step. Your shoulders carry the familiar weight of the bundle. It has grown almost part of you, shifting slightly as you walk, nudging against your back, reminding you of its presence. The road stretches ahead like a ribbon of muted brown and gray. Soft mist rises from the fields. The air smells faintly of wet earth and grass. Your boots press against uneven ground, leaving impressions that may disappear by evening under new travelers' steps or rainfall. Walking in the medieval world is not dramatic. There are no asphalt streets, no distant streetlights, no crowds to hurry past. Instead, there is only the steady rhythm of your own movement. Step, step, step. The hours stretch like a gentle river. Time loses its usual measure. You gauge it by the sun's shifting light, by the position of the shadows, by the subtle changes in the air. Perhaps the distant sound of a stream or the faint smoke of a farmhouse signals midday. You pause occasionally to adjust the bundle, to shift the cloak around your shoulders, to press a small stone into the sole of your boot where a blister begins its slow forming. You notice each twinge, each minor ache. Nothing demands immediate attention, but everything contributes to the overall experience. The road seems longer now. Miles that might have felt ordinary yesterday now feel multiplied. Fatigue grows gradually. Your legs remind you of every step already taken, every stone pressed into the sole, every rut navigated. The medieval traveler learns to move with this fatigue rather than fight it. There is no rush. There is only endurance. Sometimes the wind shifts. A cool breeze moves across the open fields. It brushes against your face, moving your hair, chilling the back of your neck. Your cloak shifts with it. The effect is subtle but constant. You feel it without needing to acknowledge it consciously. As the hours pass, the world around you seems to fold into the rhythm of walking. Hedges, trees, cottages, and distant hills move past your vision slowly. Shadows stretch and contract. The light softens. Animals move quietly in the fields. A cow lifts its head to watch you, then resumes grazing. A flock of birds rises from a distant grove, circling briefly before settling again. All of this becomes part of the background, part of the subtle pressure of the journey. You notice it even in silence. Walking alone allows the mind to stretch. Thoughts wander. Moments of observation arrive gently. You recognize patterns in the fields, the way the road curves, the occasional signs of human activity. Sometimes a faint path leads off the main road, perhaps a shortcut, perhaps the path to a farmstead. You choose carefully, because each decision shapes the next several hours. Your steps remain slow, measured, intentional. Fatigue is a companion now, almost comfortable in its familiarity. The rhythm of walking begins to feel like meditation. Breathing matches steps. Eyes sweep the horizon slowly. Hands adjust the bundle with automatic precision. The world itself feels deliberate. Every movement counts. Every decision carries weight, however subtle. And yet the road feels unchanging. Step, 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 step. No dramatic events. No urgency. Only endurance. By late afternoon, your legs begin to demand another pause. Perhaps a small rise in the road offers a view of the surrounding fields. You stop, leaning lightly on your walking stick. The sun begins to descend. Shadows lengthen. The air grows softer. A faint chill brushes your skin. You shift your cloak more tightly around your shoulders. You begin to think quietly of shelter. The next village. A farmhouse. A patch of dry ground beneath a tree. All possibilities are acceptable, because the day will end, and tonight you will rest. The road, however, continues patiently, indifferent to your fatigue. Step, step, step. This is the endurance of medieval travel. Not heroic, not dramatic. Only persistent. The day moves onward slowly, and you feel its passage more in your body than in your mind. Fatigue deepens almost imperceptibly. Your legs grow heavier with every step. Your shoulders ache under the bundle. Even breathing feels slightly more deliberate, as if each inhale and exhale requires quiet attention. Yet the road continues, indifferent to your fatigue. Step, step. Weather adds its own subtle pressures. A gentle drizzle begins, soft at first. Not enough to soak through your cloak entirely, but enough to make the road slippery. Mud forms in shallow puddles. Boots leave deeper impressions. The rhythmic squelch beneath each step is slow and unavoidable. You adjust your pace, moving carefully where once you might have walked briskly. The drizzle cools the air. Your fingers grow slightly stiff inside your gloves. You shift the bundle on your back to compensate. Every small adaptation is a quiet conversation with the road, the weather, and your body. Hours pass. The drizzle fades into mist. Mist thickens as the afternoon advances. Your vision softens, the edges of fields blur. The road ahead seems less distinct. You rely more on memory and instinct than clear sight. Occasionally you hear the faint clatter of a wagon in the distance, or the distant call of a shepherd guiding his flock. Each sound reminds you that you are part of a larger world. But it does not quicken your steps. The medieval traveler learns patience, a quiet patience that allows the body to endure without strain beyond necessity. Step, step, step. You notice the small aches with clarity now. The tender spot behind the knee, the slight pinch of a strap across your shoulder, the heels rubbing gently against leather boots. All these minor complaints could accumulate, but you have learned to work with them rather than resist them. The road itself becomes a partner in endurance. Curves, dips, rises all shape your movement. You adjust subconsciously, stepping around soft patches of mud, leaning into slopes, shifting weight to avoid strain. The mist grows thicker. Low clouds gather over distant hills. A slight chill runs down your neck. Your cloak offers warmth, but the dampness of the morning remains, clinging to wool and leather. Every sense is quietly engaged. Every movement requires thought, even if only faintly. Occasionally you pause to wipe a lens of water from a gloved hand or adjust the bundle more comfortably. Other travelers pass slowly in the opposite direction. Some nod. Some offer brief greetings. Most continue silently. You notice them in peripheral vision more than in direct attention. Time stretches differently here. Minutes elongate without drama. Hours are measured by distance, fatigue, and weather, rather than clocks or schedules. You move steadily, rhythmically. Step, step, step. Eventually you notice a change in the light. Shadows lengthen. The mist begins to lift, revealing slightly more of the surrounding fields. The sun approaches the horizon, softening the world. Evening is near. And with evening comes another quiet truth of medieval travel, the need for rest. You begin scanning the landscape for signs of shelter. A farmhouse, a cluster of cottages, a possible inn, even a small one. Sometimes only a dry patch of ground beneath a tree will suffice. Tonight the road will demand attention, not movement. Tomorrow it will resume its quiet insistence. But for now, your body and the road have negotiated a temporary truce. Step, step. The light begins its slow descent as the afternoon turns toward evening. Shadows stretch across fields, long and soft, following the gentle rise and fall of the land. The air cools. A faint breeze drifts across the path, brushing against your face and stirring the edges of your cloak. You feel the first unmistakable tug of fatigue in your legs and shoulders. Not sharp, not urgent, just a steady, quiet reminder that the day has been long. Step, step, step. Your pace slows naturally, dictated by the body's subtle complaints. You begin scanning the horizon for signs of shelter. Perhaps a farmhouse tucked into a fold of the land, a cluster of cottages huddled near a church, a small inn, if fortune allows. Or if none of these appear, a suitable patch of dry ground beneath the boughs of a tree or within a small copse. The medieval traveler always prepares for such possibilities. Even when comfort seems near, caution shapes movement. Along the path you notice a faint wisp of smoke rising in the distance, not from your day's beginning, but somewhere new, a village or farmstead marking the day's potential end. You adjust your course slightly. Each step now carries anticipation as well as the habitual rhythm. Step, step, step. The road narrows slightly, flanked by low hedges and scattered trees. The ground is softened with previous rain. Boots press into the earth carefully, avoiding small puddles and uneven patches. The rhythm remains constant, but attention sharpens. Night will arrive soon, and with it the world changes. Even familiar terrain becomes uncertain in the fading light. You pause for a moment, leaning lightly on your walking stick. The breeze carries the faint scent of wood smoke and earth. Cattle graze quietly in distant pastures. Birds return to their nests. The world prepares itself for the night as you prepare for your pause. Eventually the path begins to reveal signs of human habitation. A farmhouse at first, then a few cottages clustered nearby, perhaps a modest inn, recognizable by the wider door, and smoke curling steadily from the chimney. This is the reward for patience and endurance. You step carefully up to the door. The innkeeper, accustomed to travelers, greets you quietly. A small coin exchanges hands. You are shown a place to leave your bundle, a bench to remove boots and shift the cloak, a table with a simple meal, perhaps a bowl of barley and vegetables, or a small piece of meat if the day has been fortunate. The fire in the hearth crackles softly, warming the space and drawing moisture from damp clothing. Other travelers rest quietly. Some sit near the fire, some stretch on benches or lean against walls, boots drying, heads lowered in quiet contemplation. The room feels calm, almost deliberate. No loud conversation, no drama, just warmth, rest, and the quiet pause that comes after hours of movement. After eating, you are guided to the sleeping area. A loft above the common room, simple but sufficient. Straw mattresses laid side by side, rough blankets folded neatly. Your bundle rests nearby, boots drying beside the ladder. You settle onto the straw slowly. The fire's warmth drifts upward. Voices fade. Step, step, step. The road has paused. For tonight, your journey rests. Tomorrow it will resume. But tonight, warmth and quiet allow your body to release the accumulated weight of the day. You lie back. The ceiling beams above are dark but solid. The faint smell of straw and smoke mingles in the air. The world is quiet, and as you close your eyes, the road's rhythm, so constant through the day, begins to fade gently into dreams. Step, step, step. Even the road, patient and indifferent, seems to acknowledge your pause. The medieval traveler learns this quiet truth. The journey is never only about movement. It is about knowing when to rest, when to pause, when to allow the body and the mind to reconcile the hours spent beneath sun, wind, rain, and mist. The night comes slowly. The warmth of the fire reaches even the loft above. Breathing slows. Eyes close. Step, step, step. And for now, the journey rests. Night has fully arrived now, and the world outside the inn's walls is quiet. The wind has settled. The fields are still. The only movement is the slow, steady dance of smoke rising from chimneys. Inside, the warmth of the fire continues to stretch upward. Your body feels the weight of the day in familiar ways. Legs heavy, shoulders stiff, hands slightly sore from adjusting bundles and walking sticks. But these sensations are tempered by relief. Relief that the day's journey is paused, that for now the road allows stillness. Sleep approaches naturally, and as it does, your mind begins to drift through the events of the day. You remember the winding paths, the river crossing, the gentle bends around hills and farms. You recall the soft sounds of distant animals, the murmur of farmers at work, the careful gestures of fellow travelers. The medieval road is not made of concrete or straight lines. It is made of patience, endurance, and quiet observation. Every mile is measured in subtlety rather than in speed. Every landmark speaks in whispers rather than in signs. Even the dangers of the path are subtle, quiet, almost invisible until they have passed or left their mark. You notice this now, lying on the straw mattress. The aches in your body are reminders of movement, persistence, and attention. Your mind, untethered from urgency, begins to consider the lessons embedded in the day. Patience, observation, adaptation. The road teaches these in ways no other teacher can. Even in moments of stillness, it remains present. Tomorrow it will resume. Miles will stretch ahead. The path will bend, rise, and fall. Fatigue will return, subtly at first, then more insistently. Weather will change. Small hazards will appear and dissipate. But tonight, there is only quiet, only warmth, only the rhythmic cadence of memory and breath. You consider the people you passed, the villagers, the shepherds, the fellow travelers. Their movements were simple, deliberate, and slow, and in observing them you recognize a subtle connection. The road is shared even in its solitude, even in its challenges, and so the medieval traveler learns the quiet endurance of life itself, to walk steadily, to pay attention, to rest when needed, and to continue when the moment comes. There is no triumph, no dramatic arrival, only the soft persistence of human effort. Outside, the night deepens. The moon may rise or hide behind clouds. Stars appear slowly, faint and patient. The world is calm, almost breathless. And here, lying on straw, listening to the faint crackle from the hearth below, you begin to release the day. Step by step, movement fades. Thoughts soften. The body relaxes. Sleep creeps gently forward, carrying you through the quiet lessons of the road. You have walked through wind, mist, mud, rivers, and hills. You have observed, endured, and persisted. And now you rest, not in victory, not in relief, but in quiet reflection. The road waits. Tomorrow it will resume. But for now it rests with you. Step, step, step. The rhythm continues softly in memory, fading gently into sleep. The medieval journey is complete for today, and in its patient unfolding it leaves its lessons, endurance, observation, subtlety, and the quiet companionship of the road itself. Sleep now, traveler. The path will remain, patiently, until morning.